I met a man at a restaurant. He comes over and he looks at me and he says, didn't even know me, a black man, in a room full of white people. And I say that deliberately because he took the time to walk across the room, and he didn't even know who I was, didn't even come from Nashville. And he said, you all right? You look like something, like you got something on your mind. Really? Well, we wound up talking for hours. And he called me the next day, and the next day he told me about faith. And as a result of that man, on October 10th, 1978, he asked me if I wanted to pray and give my life to Jesus Christ, and I did. And then God has a sense of humor, and he knows that I'm cocky and full of myself, so he said, I believe I'll snatch the hair off that boy's head. and he changed me. And it's been a steady process of what I call down south here, taking the starch out of my britches. And when the God does that to you, then he can use you. Because when we're full of ourselves and whatever we do, we're not worth it for anything to anybody. But when we're not full of ourselves, if I'm interested in you, and if I'm interested in communicating information or telling people that sports is like life, if I do that, then I'm doing, there's a difference between your job and your purpose. Job is a broadcaster. Purpose is to lift people up and lift him up, and by the Spirit with which you do your work.
So would you say that faith is the single most thing that's gotten you through all the hard times and all the trials that you've been through?
I almost want to say, what do you think?
That seems to be the key thing here.
It is. It's the whole purpose. See, my faith is not a game. It's not Sunday. It's my whole life. Every single day. I've had other things here at the station. About 6 years ago, new management came in. I've been here 30 years, won all kinds of awards. New manager, came in and said, didn't like the way I did sports. Wanted to move on, get somebody else. Really? After 30 years of thinking I was pretty good? Now that happens to a lot of people. They get older, and it's eventually has to be changes, pro athletes, and good gracious. And they say, I was supposed to be gone here from this station on December 31st, 2004. But I'm still here because God intended for me to be here. It takes it away from me trying to push my life. All he tells me to do is be enthusiastic, have hope, have faith, be a good husband, be a good father. I can't sit here and talk to you about being, you have faith now and believe in your work, and I'm sitting there having an affair with somebody, or I'm somewhere in a cubicle on an internet looking at stuff I got no business with, or I'm out partying in ways I got no business, and then try to tell you about being a good person and a moral person. There's a line from a song, from a George Michael song in the 80s. It says, guilty feet have got no rhythm. We can't play games. You can't go to a Christian school and nicety nice and go to Bible study class and then do your own thing when nobody's looking. It just sucks the life out of you. So my whole life is the whole purpose of it. Like it says in Mark, Matthew as well. If any man would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. My whole life is based on a self-discipline that I'm forced to do. Some of it, a lot of it ain't that I want to, but I feel better when I discipline myself for the sake of those that are around me. Didn't know that you get a sermon, did you?
I'm enjoying it, actually. I'm going to cut this little part out of me talking, but it's going to be good with the video. It's going to speak to a lot of people, so I appreciate it. I'm going to start back now. How did that piece out today? How did you make your sports reports and newscasts your own?
Part of it is just, I'm not a clever writer. Some of it is that I like to just talk like I talk to people. Some of it is just the spirit with which I do it. Some of it is I started, 20 years ago. I said, I got one suit, and it's not really me, so I thought I'd wear a sweater. One night I wore a sweater on the newscast, and the phone rang after the newscast, and the guy said to me, called me, he said, I just want you to know that I travel the country for an organization as a sales representative, and you're the most unprofessional looking broadcaster I've ever seen. I went, oh no. Talked to the news director, and he said, well, look, don't listen, So I eased in one sweater every couple of weeks, and then another one, and after a while it became an identity. And that's what it is me. I don't do it as a shtick. I'm just more comfortable this way, and it's fun wearing stuff like that, and it's nice to be different. All of us are unique in some way. And so it's nice to be, I don't want to be a cookie cutter. I think that God's given, there's enough in something that says God's given me a different kind of an ability that somebody else doesn't have. I don't know what it is, but I just want to be, alive and be who I am.
Your sweater has definitely become a staple with the younger crowd that don't necessarily know your work and your awards.
Really? See, I
Yes.
wonder if I'm getting to the point in my life where younger people are saying, who's that old fogey wearing those sweaters and all that stuff?
If you're from Nashville and you've been watching the news as you've grown up, you've been there. You're definitely recognizable. People know your name,
Well,
and they know your sweaters.
well, that's
It's cute. It's interesting. It's something that people can grab onto and be like, I know that guy. He's the guy that wears the sweaters. He tells the sports. We like
Yeah.
that guy.
And I try to change them so they don't look like old sweaters. I mean, I try to stay up.
They look like new sweaters. You're
Okay.
good.
All right.
What do you believe the one thing is that has truly helped you become a better journalist?
Interesting question. What's the one thing that's made me a better journalist? I honestly, I go back to the faith. I go back to it because I'm interested in people, and so when I go do interviews, I'm really listening to what they're saying, and I feed off of that, and it makes me ask other questions. I ask things about themselves. I do it in the Titans locker room, and I talk a lot about how do you handle the pressure in your life, and how do you make a catch when you're a football player. And the crowd is roaring, and I know what it feels like to feel that burning tension inside of me on a much smaller scale. And how do you find the nerve to catch that ball and make it that moment? If I convey that to people because I'm interested in the person, and then I ask them about themselves, that's what I think connects with people. Because in a broadcast sense, our television station, at least 50% of the people have limited, if any, interest in sports. So they're looking for a reason to turn you off. But if I can make you interested in that person, and you find out that there's more depth to that person, and the only way I find out is if I'm interested. If I'm only interested in standing there and being a reporter, and you get to look at me, tell you about so-and-so, that's phony as a $3 bill. But if I do it the other way and make them important and find out about them, then people say, I like the stuff that he does. I like seeing when he's on TV because he's not full of himself. He has interest. Well, bingo. Now you've got longevity, hopefully, and hopefully success that comes with it.
Did you think you learned all that stuff on your own, or did you learn it while you're in school? Maybe when someone was pointing it out to you, or
None
a
of it was
mentor.
learned. I don't think any of it was learned.
Yeah.
It's an innate thing. It's a little bit of this kid growing up, and there's a lot of it that happened when faith comes into your life and God says, I want you to quit thinking about yourself and be interested in other people. Now you listen. I'm telling you, young people in college now, I get interns all the time. Their attention span every year is less and less. The attention span of a gnat. There's a difference between listening and listening. And it's amazing. Interns have bright A-grade, straight A students who I have to repeat and repeat and repeat. And I get to the point where I'm not repeating anymore. You're not listening to me. And so if they're not listening to me in a vocation that they want to work in, because they're just, yeah, I got it, yeah, I got it, yeah, I got it, yeah, I got it, yeah, I got it. We can all do that. But they're not listening to what I'm saying. If I have to keep repeating, it means to me, they're not listening to anybody. That means they're going through life, hey, I'm on my own little rock and roll trail here. I'm going where I want to go. And yeah, nice to see you. We'll go out of the way. A man who cared enough to look across the room and see me and didn't know me and said there's something bothering that guy and walk across to ask me about that, that's pretty powerful. That changed my life. And that's what we have that opportunity to do. So it all goes back to me, to where your relationship with God is and being what He wants you to be, and He tells you to be interested in other people.
Are you nervous that the future generations coming into news won't have that?
I think there's like a polarization thing. There are a lot of people coming into our work now who are just they're a guy I used to work with would say slicker and boiled okra. They're smart. They know how to play the game. They know how to be smooth. They can do all that sort of stuff. But there are also some powerfully bright young people that are there now. And then there's that other group down here that just doesn't give a flip. All they want to do is party and have a good time and give me some money and let me rock and roll, and that's it. Young people your age now in college are a product of the media that they see. Because we're told on television every day in every commercial, you deserve it, you do best. Yeah, hey, you don't have a job in a Lexus. You would look great in a Lexus. Can't afford a lick out of it. But that's, the mentality is that if you're going to look right, you got to dress right, you got to smell right, you got to have the right car to be somebody. That's how you're somebody, is by the stuff you got, and you deserve it and somebody else doesn't.
What would you tell aspiring journalists entering in the Nashville journalism market as something they should remember?
Just be real. First, know yourself. Know yourself in that regards. And if you don't care about other people, then think about doing something else. I just want them to be real. I tell reporters here, again, talk to me. Don't report to me. Talk to me. Be interested in your subject matter. Be in depth in that. Ask the questions that need to be, and convey that information to people on the other side. I have to try to not convince, but show to you that I'm interested in what I'm reporting to you, so that you'll find interest in it, and it might even be beneficial in some way. So the biggest thing I'm always talking about is be real. Don't play because somehow we think we got to play these games in order to be successful. It's almost novel now. There's so much slick out there, so much different styles and different way to do it, that to be real is almost a wonder. It's a wonderful time to be real. Because people that are genuine, you'll see reports say, well, wasn't that refreshing? Really, all they were is just being real for a change. So.
As you mentioned before, that's obviously a product of Nashville, something you enjoy because everyone's real in Nashville, you believe. Do you think that would be the same case in LA or New York, to still have that same quality?
No, and I don't know. I've not worked there, visited there. I've worked with people. And they will say it invariably. I say, you can get away with slick in these other, because those people there's a lot of good folks in all those cities. But there's enough of the, hey, all over the place kind of stuff where I wouldn't fit, because I don't know how to play the game. I don't know how to do that. But again, I've had people that I work with here in this building who worked in LA who said Nashville is so different because it is so, people here are real.
Everyone's interested in the highlights of your career, obviously. You've interviewed with some of the greats. Yeah. Could you name a few and tell me a little bit about those experiences?
Well, I've had so many different people. Michael Jordan interviewed when he was in college, when he wasn't in NBA, one of the greatest of all time. I thought that was, it was fascinating to kind of talk to him. I interviewed Muhammad Ali in 1975. He came to Nashville. He was a heavyweight champion of the world. Funniest thing to me, Entourage comes in, and I'll never forget. I went out to shake his hand, and he barely shook my hand, just barely. Oh no, you're the champ. Yeah, I wanted. So it's a funny impression, and yet he was a very interesting guy. People like Jack Nicklaus in golf. One of the first interviews I did when I came to Nashville. They sent me down. He was at some golfing exhibition, and I went down there to interview Mr. Jack Nicklaus, and he did the thing, and he comes walking up to me because somebody said he wanted to do an interview. 200 people gathered around us, and I'm going, and I don't know what kind of question I asked. So I've had an awful lot of people. I don't get awed by them anymore. I'm interested in people. I'm interested to see what their demeanor will be like and how they'll be. But I've met an awful lot of interesting and neat people.
What were a few of your favorite or most interesting stories that you've reported on or just researched?
Well, one of my most favorite that I have is there was a high school team here at Martin Luther King High School. Now, this is not that big of a deal, but this was back in, I think, 1991. And their basketball team had the two star players, two brothers, were all-state players. One was all-state, the other one was like all-city. Their two best players by far were Seventh-day Adventists. And they went to the state tournament, and they won on Thursday, and they won on Friday. And the championship game was on Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but according to their religion, they could not. They had to be in church until sundown on Saturday. So these two young brothers, their team, surprising everyone by getting that far, played in the state championship game without their two tallest and best players, an all-state player, and won. And the two brothers came at 6 o'clock when they got out of church, came to the arena, and there was a night game that night, and their teammates were still around, and got like a standing ovation from the people because they stood on their faith, and yet the other guys on the team that nobody gave a chance to had rallied because of them and won the game. I mean, it makes me emotional. To me, that's the coolest thing in the world.
It is, definitely. Speaking of your favorite stories, do you ever think you're going to be okay leaving them behind and leaving behind the news business, or do you even think about that?
No, I think about it. I don't know. Well, sure, it's some way. I won't miss the rat race of things that we do and the things that we chase around. I have no idea how it'll feel because I'm not there. This has been my life for almost 40 years. So I don't know, but I will continue to, in some way. I do a lot of speaking. I spend a lot of time in the community. I think there are people that I will continue to try. Here's my next mission, I think, is to try to take young people like you and tell them about, about life, about making those choices. I do it in schools now as much as I can, so that in some sense, here's an idea of that, I don't know if we call it mentoring in some way, but I do want to be a voice in some way for them or someone who's been through it. And here's some things you need to try to think about if you want to be successful.
Do you think you'd ever participate in like a workshop at a local college like Lipscomb?
I do. I do it now. I do it at Belmont. They invite me all the time. I speak to a class there every single year. I go to high schools. I do it a lot. I probably had over 70 speaking things that I did last year. So yeah, it's my for some or whatever reason, I've got a little bit of a message, and it's a case of how I can convey it. Mainly lately, I've been wanting to, even young people, to tell them this about, look at your life and the things that have shaped you, and don't be upset with it. It may have been difficult. You may have had one parent or no parents, or it might have been a very hard circumstances in your life, but all of that was meant by God to give you a unique perspective. So take that as a power source and use that as your mission, because your purpose is different than my purpose. But if you can tap people into thinking about that and realizing that you can have faith and literally be in broadcasting, you mean you can be a Christian broadcaster? Wow, what a novel concept.
I'm officially inviting you to speak at Lipscomb. What do you envision for your life when you do decide to leave the business?
I hope that part of it includes, I do speaking. I would work on a book. Not that the book is necessary. Maybe it gives you some street cred in other parts of the country. I want to convey some of that. I want to be maybe used as a source of encouragement. I don't know if it's through a church and what. I don't know. But I think the good Lord has given me an ability to communicate in some way. So would we be in some way communicating with people and giving them hope and encouragement in their lives.
If there was one thing that you would change about your past as a reporter, what do you think it would be and why?
Well, the one thing is I think I'm a pussycat. I wish I was somewhat tougher. And some of that goes back to my childhood again, when my father, shh, keep your mouth shut. So in some cases, I think that I needed to be stronger about asking tougher questions. Maybe I have to some degree, but I haven't, not to my satisfaction. That I kind of wish I would have done more of that.
Is there one particular word maybe that you could sum up what news is supposed to be, or what you feel like a newscaster should be like? Any one characteristic?
Not just one word. If you want it in one word?
If you could. If not, a phrase.
How about this? Crosses my mind. Transparent. I like that. Because I think if you can be transparent, if people can see who you are and see that you're real and accept you for who you are, then they'll listen to you. They'll listen to you. But if they can sense, and you're around people, there's some people you're around for 5 minutes. You don't hardly know them, and you like them. The way they convey it, other people, 5 minutes, there's something. I used to tell my daughters that when they thought they were dating really nice boys. I said, wait a minute, they understand this spirit in some sense. But if you can be transparent, in other words, if I don't have much to hide, if I'm trying to be honest with you, transparent about what I say, the work that I communicate, the stories that I do in some way, then I think people will gravitate to that. So that, I never would have thought of that, but that just crossed my mind, and I think I like that.